They're told less than cloud.
At this time, I will call the meeting of the Marshall City Council to order with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone here this evening. We have an agenda before us. Are there any changes to that agenda? If not, we'll operate under that agenda. The first item will be the ceremonial swearing in of elected official, newly elected city council member, Amanda Schroeder. I will call on City Clerk Stephen Anderson to come forward and administer the oath of office. Because the council did have a work session earlier, Amanda previously was sworn in so she could participate in the budget work session. This is the ceremonial swearing in.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have Amanda come up here, and I'm going to have you swear on our code of ordinances.
The other Bible.
So if you place your hand here and raise your right hand, and then read on the screen.
I, Amanda Schroeder, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the state of Minnesota and of the United States, and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of council member of the city of Marshall, so help me God.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now you've done it.
Now it's official.
Welcome, Amanda. I think I speak for all the council that we're very pleased to have you join the city council and have this position in Ward 1 also filled. So a bit later in the, when we'll talk about some committee assignments towards the end of our meeting, because council members do serve a number of roles in addition to the regular council meetings, serve on various boards and commissions, serve on council committees, so we'll talk about all of those. With that, we'll move then to agenda item number 2. That would be consider the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting that was held on August 8th, as well as the special meeting that was held on August 11th. The council does have the minutes of both of those meetings. Are there any corrections to note at this time?
Move to approve.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Russ to approve the minutes of both those meetings as they have been presented. We will move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion,
Yes, I'm not in. I didn't have my vote screen up here, so
you voted yes, right?
yes.
Okay, so the motion does pass unanimously. Amanda, you can feel pretty good. You weren't the,
Right?
Agenda item number 3 is a public hearing. This is a public hearing on the floodplain management ordinance amendment, Chapter 38, Article 2 of the City Code of Ordinances. We will have a public hearing, and then following the public hearing, then we will consider the adoption of the ordinance. So Jason Anderson, City Engineer and Director of Public Works, I believe he's online. So I will ask Jason Anderson remotely to conduct this public hearing. Jason?
Thank you, Mayor. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Just fine? Great. So on March 15th, the city received a letter from FEMA. It's called a letter of final determination. That letter was issued because there were amended floodplain map panels in our city limits. Map panels 304, 308, and 312 were amended. They were amended in a manner that reflects that the 1963 levy, which is located in the southwest part of town, is no longer provisionally accredited, and therefore it does not, it's not shown as provided protection from the 100-year or 1% annual chance flood. It was provisionally accredited for many numbers of years. This actually probably should have happened a little sooner, this change, but it took a little longer than I think was expected. But it's been provisionally accredited and not fully accredited because there's not enough freeboard on the levee to provide that type of protection. It doesn't meet current standard. The loss of this accreditation doesn't change the flood zone. It's still going to be a zone X. It's just a different form of zone X. So in the grand scheme of things, there is no change to anybody's flood insurance on the other side of this levee. Because the flood panels were amended, our ordinance does need to be updated to reflect current standard as well. So we've been working with the Minnesota DNR to go through this, and the ordinance that we're presenting today is essentially their model ordinance with a few changes after we've had some conversations back and forth with city staff and DNR staff. So if there's any questions, I'm here to help address them. Thank you.
Okay, we'll open up for any input as part of this public hearing, either from the audience or from the council. John?
Just a question, Jason. Can you define freeboard?
Yeah, essentially it's additional elevation above the water level in that flood event. So I think that you need to have an additional, I think it's 1 foot above that flood elevation, and that levee does not provide that any longer.
Okay.
And the 1963 levy, you might want to kind of describe the location. It's a little difficult to describe, but it is, I would call it north of the river going towards Highway 19.
Yeah, it's a tough one to describe. It ties into a railroad embankment. It's north of the river near Victory Park, I think we call it now, Wayside Rest. And it extends, I don't know, maybe some 1,800 feet along the north side of the river. If floodwaters were to overtop it, they would go through the farm field and then head towards Magellan and towards Highway 19.
And eventually then into the diversion channel. And this is the levee that over the years, we've been required to either add or take off some of the top of it. So there's been some work done over the years on this.
Yes, there has.
That's the one to the west, I think, of Victory Park.
Correct.
Yeah, it's the other side of the river. Yeah.
North and west.
Yeah. Any other input as part of the public hearing? I guess the point is that it doesn't affect any residential properties, and it mostly affects outside the city limits. So, and as Jason suggested, it really has no effect whatsoever. So, but
Make a motion to close the public hearing. Second.
motion by John, seconded by Jim. Discussion on the motion. If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll now consider the ordinance that was the topic of the public hearing. Are there any questions about that ordinance?
Mr. Mayor, just one question for Jason. Jason, are you going to have any issues with meeting that September 13th deadline from Minnesota Department of Natural Resources letter?
No, we will not. We'll be right on time. We're a few weeks later than we intended to be, but we'll be okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions about the ordinance? If not, is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Russ. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll move then to agenda item number 4. This is award of bids. This is to authorize the purchase of trees for the Parks Department as part of the 2021 preparing for Emerald Ash Board grant that was received. I'll call him Preston Stensrud from our Parks Department, who has been not only the park superintendent, but also has been administering this grant and the work that's been done up to this point. Preston.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Like the mayor mentioned, here tonight to get approval to purchase 226 new trees to be planted in various parks at 16 different varieties that will all thrive in our climate and soils, et cetera, and ones that we have experience with and know that they do well. This is kind of the second and working towards the closing part of this grant we received from the DNR. I don't remember the exact dollar figures, but I think we were awarded like $94,000 some dollars, and we had to provide a match, cash match, and in kind, which with us doing the labor to plant these trees will kind of help assist with meeting those. And then we have the cash match that we would make, whether it's part of this or part of the tree removals that have all been completed. We'll apply for our reimbursement once we've incurred all the expenses. And then we'll just get that $94,000 back in one check from the DNR. So I did reach out to Green Nursery and Redwood Falls Nursery, which are included in the agenda packet. And then also I spoke with two other local landscapers who were not interested in providing trees and just a little bit out of their realm of work. So with that, I would propose to purchase the 226 trees from Greenwood Nursery in the amount of $49,960. And I would like to note that all these trees will have a 2-year warranty, which is a requirement of the grant. And also Jeff from Greenwood Nursery did give us a 20% discount on this total, and that's figured into here. So this would have been, $10,000 to $12,000 higher had we not received that discount. But he's always willing to work with us on projects like this. So with that, I'd recommend approval, and we have to stake out all the trees, GPS them, and send the maps of what kind of tree got planted where to the DNR. So we'll just kind of slowly work through this, probably do one park at a time. So.
And the number of parks would be 5 parks.
Yep. So like Independence Park, I think we'll get 78 new trees. Legion Field's going to get like 82, which has the oldest tree population in our parks. And then like Victory Park's 20, I think the Freedom Park's 20, and the old complex is 26, I think. So.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Preston?
I just have a quick question, and I didn't do the math, but I see Redwood Falls Nursery did not total their.
Yep.
Well, I mean, they really didn't give you any detail, did they?
No, I actually went and figured it out. So in the first page of their quote or estimate, I would call it, those are all 10-gallon containers, which would have about a 1-inch diameter trunk, which will not meet the DNR specification. So that page, it was just sent to me in one document, so I just threw them both in there. The second page would be the one we'd need to look at to meet the tree diameter, and I did total those up. It would be $92,225, and it would be a 1-year warranty.
Well, thank you. And I was just trying to figure that out, and I'm at a loss of that.
Your warranty doesn't meet.
No,
the
we have to have
requirements,
we
so
have
they
to have a 2. So Greenwoods is providing the 2 plus the discount and the lower quote. So.
And then it's said in here, the park staff is planting the trees.
Yep. I was gonna see. I didn't know how this was gonna turn out. Just like anything, trees have went up quite a bit actually, and the availability of them is actually getting hard to find. So if I had them each put in a cost to plant, because if we had DNR monies still available, it's going to have them help. We're going to be right at our threshold. So if we want to help them plant, we would just have to absorb those costs with no reimbursement. So, which if we get in a pinch, I can take it out of the parks, but we're going to slowly work at it and see where we end up by winter. So.
Okay. Any other questions?
One other comment for Preston, it must drive you absolutely crazy, but when you planted all the new trees a year ago, I looked in Freedom Park because I'm there all the time. I just, for our listening public, I hope they leave the branches alone, and I'm not saying little kids, big kids, whatever the case would be. You know, I'm sure you've seen it too.
Yep.
It's just they see the new trees and right away they snap the branches, you know, and it just drives me absolutely crazy.
Yep, yeah, we run into it often, and we try not to prune them until they get good and established, just to let those lower branches hang low. And if you prune them high where they can't reach them, they look kind of funny.
Yeah.
But yes, they do get damaged quite regularly, I'll say. So yeah, if anyone, you know, sees that or whatever, can bring it to our attention, just
Yeah,
so
and
that
for the
maybe it'll
listening
help.
public,
Yep.
if they see it, bring it to the city's attention,
Yep.
please.
Preston, how big is a 15-gallon tree? I mean, what does that mean in size of the diameter?
Yeah, it's basically the pot it's in. A 15-gallon pot, a tree would be 8 to 10 feet tall and 1.5 inches diameter. So a very substantial tree. I mean, a 2-person lift type of a tree. So
I think the other point to make is that, you know, every tree species has a different rate of growth, and the trees that were planted on Saratoga Street bike path that are all labeled, as the city prepares, as homeowners prepare for the arrival of emerald ash borer, that's really a good reference point, because you can see which trees, you know, do best in which soils, and which ones the leaves are a little more yellow, and which ones the elm trees are almost twice as big as
Yep.
the oak trees there. And
Yep.
so there's, you know, you can really see how these trees are going to adapt in Marshall.
yes, and I'd say it takes a good 2 growing seasons before them to actually get rooted and established before you're going to start to see them taking off. So don't expect, you know, next year they're going to double in size. But the elms, like you said, you can definitely tell out there. You can pick them out just by looking at what's the biggest tree. Those are all the elms. But they are all labeled, and we get calls regularly about people that want to plant trees in their yard. We're happy to provide a little bit of education of what we'd recommend, so or not recommend maybe. So,
And those elms are all resistant to Dutch elm disease. So. Any other questions for Preston? If not, you have the recommendation for the purchase of the trees.
I move authorization to purchase the trees. Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Jim. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll move then to the consent agenda, and we'll bring the items up on the screen that are on the consent agenda this evening. And they include, consider the approval of a temporary on-sale intoxicating liquor license for Marshall Area Chamber of Commerce for an event at Cruise Motors. Consider the approval of a temporary on-sale intoxicating liquor license for Marshall Area Chamber of Commerce. The Taste of Marshall event. Consider a temporary extension of the alcohol license area for Brow Brothers Brewing Company, 110 East Southview Drive for Hop Fest, which will be held September 9th to 10th, 2022. Consider the approval of the on-sale intoxicating liquor license and Sunday on sale for Nakamas Enterprises LLP. Consider the approval of temporary on-sale liquor license for Marshall Area YMCA. Consider the approval of the premises permit for application for Marshall Baseball Association. Consider a resolution calling for a public hearing on the proposed assessments for ice, snow, and weed elimination. And then finally, consider the approval of the bills and the project payments. Is there any item on the consent agenda any member of the council wants removed for purposes of separate discussion? If not, is there a motion?
So move.
Motion by John,
Second.
seconded by Craig to approve all of the items on the consent agenda. Discussion? If not, we will move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. Agenda item number 13 is pertaining to the the on-street bike lanes on the state aid streets. I'll call on Jason Anderson, city engineer.
Thank you, Mayor. Earlier this year, State District 8 MnDOT staff brought to our attention that our on-street painted bike lanes appeared to be out of compliance with MnDOT standards. Because we get state funding for our state aid routes, they do have to meet certain standards for lane widths. Parking lanes, bike lanes, travel lanes, they all have kind of written rules for widths and sizes, and you can't have parking lanes, bike lanes, and travel lanes all meeting minimum standards on the same section. And in pretty much all of our locations, or at least most of them, we have that situation going on. So to resolve the issue, we really have 5 options. Some are more doable than others. Number 1 would be to widen the streets and allow more space. Staff has kind of written that off as not a feasible option due to cost. Number 2 would be to keep the bike lanes painted as they are today and apply to state aid for a variance to allow them. If we want to go that route, we need to get our application in pretty soon. I think the deadline is in a week or 2. Option 3 is remove parking from one side of the street and then restripe the bike lanes as they are. But staff has written that out as well as an option. We don't think that the council would want to remove parking from all these streets on one side. Option 4 would be to remove the dedicated bike lanes and paint shared lane markings, which are also called sharrows. And if you scroll down one more, Stephen, I think there's a diagram of what that kind of typically looks like right there. So you can see in this situation, there'd be a center line, outside fog lines, and parking lanes, and you have that shared bike lane symbol painted in the driving lane. The roads are wide enough to meet standard to allow for that on the stated routes. And then the last would be to remove the bike lanes altogether, which staff doesn't think that would be in our best interest either. We're trying to be a bike-friendly community and push multiple modes of transportation, and we think that we should try to maintain something. Staff's opinion that we brought forward to the PIT committee was to go forward with the shared use lane, as you see in the drawing there. And for your reference also in the packet, we've got striping layouts for all the streets that are being talked about and what it might look like, because not all of the routes are 2-lane roads. Some are a center turn lane and they're 3-lane. In that situation, the shared lane marking is painted typically 4 feet from the curb because there's no parking. Where there is parking, the standard is 11 feet off the curb and out in the travel lane. And the idea being that you're telling the biker to ride in a position where they won't get hit by a car door. So yeah, the staff, I guess, would recommend that we go forward with painting these shared use lanes. They're not dedicated bike lanes anymore. They're kind of more share the road type of symbols. We'd have to do some associated signage changes too. We would take down signs that refer to a bike lane, and we would leave in their place or make sure there are signs that identify a bike route. So those would be some differences. Here for any questions, and maybe PIT committee members have input as well.
Any comments from Public Improvement Transportation Committee?
Yeah, we do recommend approval of this. I think it's a good change, and we really appreciate the work that Jason has put into doing this and setting it up.
Any other input or questions from the council? Steve?
So as an avid cyclist, and people know that, and my only concern with sharrows is education on drivers. They're already clueless when we have bike lanes. I mean, I've almost gotten hit multiple times, and I follow the rules of the road. Sharrows are going to be that much more dangerous. I would actually say do the variance and use the sharrow as a second option if we don't get the variance, because at least people are used to that. That's what I would vote for.
We had this discussion, and I know as we talk budgets, this is also more cost effective, but the 7-foot parking lane is useless. We're creating a useless road with the extra stripes anyway, because you can't put your vehicle in a 7-foot lane. And we shrink our driving lanes down, and I've shared it before, when I pull my trailer down these roads with bike lanes, I'm in the bike lane. There's no other way to do it. So I think this,
But do
you're
you
correct,
yield
Steve.
to a bike?
You're correct, is education, because this is common throughout the state of Minnesota. And it is education. This is where I hate to task the police with doing the education, but there are ones out there. If you see a car that's breaking a rule with a bike, we got to stop them. And you're correct. It's not just bikes, it's also walkers. We have 90% very considerate drivers. We have 10%, you're correct, that don't have a clue. I don't think they should have a license. Some days I think they got them out of a Cheerios box. But it is education of those drivers of what those mean. And we talked about the PINT, and I think this is a good option to fit in with the state regulations and give us a decent parking lane again. And it may take a couple years to educate our public, but we need to do that.
Well, and I think both Steve and Jim make good points. The reality is right now, during a lot of the year and when bikes aren't present, you do have traffic that is veering in or is on the bike lanes. And, certainly that currently that's not allowable, although it's common practice. So the shared use of that lane with adequate marking probably could even be a better situation than we have right now. I also agree, Steve, that general public education, not only drivers, but also the bicyclists is important.
And that's very important because at the last council meeting, when we had our council member items and I shared my experience, that happened twice in one day where trucks cut me off, semi-trucks, and I had to lock up my bike. I mean, that's just not okay.
Okay. Any other?
Even though I'm in the right of way, truck wins.
Any other questions or discussion? If not, you have the recommendation from the Public Improvement and Transportation Committee.
I make a motion to approve the recommendation.
Motion by Jim,
Second.
by Craig. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. Thank you, Jason. We'll move then to agenda item number 14, consider the joint funding agreement with the U.S. Geological Survey, USGS, for the Redwood River Gauging Station near Marshall for federal FY 2022 to 2026. Once again, Jason.
Thank you. In the council packet, you should have a copy of a joint funding agreement with the USGS for the gauging station, which is located just upstream of Marshall near Victory Park or in Victory Park. The station is extremely useful to the city and its residents in helping us predict future floods or issues. It's really, really useful information, very important to the city. Since 2010, we've split the cost of that gauging station with the USGS 50-50. And then additionally, the city has gone out and partnered with ADM to pay for our half cost. We would propose to continue that arrangement. This agreement it's nice to have a longer term agreement than an annual agreement, so we don't have to be coming back every year to go through this process, but extremely useful. You can see the cost included in there. It's pretty level. It doesn't change much. It's just under $9,000 of local costs. And as I said, we split that 50-50 with ADM. Our end comes from the surface water management utility. If there's any questions, I can try to answer them. That's all I've got.
Okay. Craig?
Jason, I think too that this is also critical, not only the same reason why ADM likes it is also part of our variability of operation at the wastewater plant is based on stream flow, correct?
Yeah, this data is really important on the wastewater end as well for permitting and understanding where we're at. That's correct.
Right, thank you.
And I think we should also note USGS does a substantial amount of maintenance out there. I've seen them out there many, many times in the spring of the year and being sure that it actually is working. So, other questions or input?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Russ. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll move then to Commission Board Liaison Reports. Actually, mine have not met since our last meeting. However, at this time, I'm going to talk about the assignments that Amanda will assume. As the council is well aware that since the passing of Councilmember Ed Bloom, the other members of the council have stepped up and taken on some additional roles, and now that Amanda will now fill in on those roles that were previously done by Don, and I'll go through those in just a second, until the end of the year. And then at the end of the year, then we will have two other newly elected council members. So will throw it wide open and do a lot of reassignment at that time. So on the council committees, equipment review, Amanda will go on that. And then if she's not available, I'll fill in for her. On the Ways and Means Committee, which also had been filled by Councilmember Ed Bloom, Amanda will go on the Ways and Means Committee. They do have a meeting on Monday afternoon, which is short notice for Amanda to fill in, so I will take Amanda's place only for that meeting. On other appointments, the Housing and Redevelopment Authority, which is made up by members of the council, Amanda, at a future meeting, the next meeting of the HRA, Amanda will be appointed to the HRA. The Planning Commission, Amanda will be resigning her current position on the Planning Commission and will serve as liaison. John DeCramer has served on the Public Housing Commission, and he has agreed because of his knowledge and experience about housing. He's going to continue on that until the end of his term this year. So he'll take Housing Commission.
Thank you.
That'll also work out with a work schedule for Amanda. I believe I covered them all. So
I think so.
with that, Craig?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a update on merit for the quarter. In the 123 days for May through August, the center was utilized 92 out of those 123 days with 1,020 people attending events and trainings. May 3rd, the NRCS held their employee meetings at the Merit Center. They hold that meeting there quarterly. 59 people were in attendance. MnDOT conducted concrete rehab training at Merit Center May 4th and 5th with 39 people. The Regional Communications Board conducted their strategic planning meeting on May 24th and their board meeting on the 25th at Merit. FEMA conducted a preliminary damage assessment meeting for Lyon and Lincoln counties at the Merit Center on June 2nd. 23 people attended then. One good event, especially to note, is Hibbing Community College rented the driving track and conducted their EVOC for their law enforcement program on June 6th through the 9th, and they're going to return next year to conduct that same training there, which is pretty significant. TZD held the regional meeting at the Merit Center on June 14th. Jasmine gave a group the tour of the facility. They plan on holding 3 more of their regional meetings at Merit in 22 and more in 2023. Merit Center hosted the legislative meet and greet on June 15th. Marshall PD did their EVOC training for their department there on June 27th. There was Emergency Operations Center training for the Region 5 emergency managers. That's HSEM's Region 5 was held at Merit, and there were 28 people in attendance there. And I just want to say that we've probably got the best EOC in Region 5 and probably one of the top even in the state, except for maybe the state's own and then a couple of the metro cities. ADM held 4 sessions of safety training at Merit Center in the month of August. United Way held their Stuff the Bus loading event at Merit Center. They were impressed with the facility and the ease of the event, so they're going to hold their next event there in 2023 as well. And then the Minnesota Police Chiefs Association held the use of force training at Merit for 20 participants in law enforcement on August 17th. So again, good use of the Merit Center and an awful lot of really good input about how Merit works. So hats off and kudos to Jasmine again and the folks in Jim that work to help make that place really tick. So thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Steve?
Cable Commission did not meet. Community Services Advisory Board didn't meet. EDA did meet, but I wasn't able to be there. So I'll defer that to Councilmember DeCramer.
Okay, thank you, Steve. The one item I did not mention earlier is that Amanda does serve on the Charter Commission. That is an appointment by the judicial judge, and so she will continue as a member of the Charter Commission. John?
MMU did meet. Probably most of the discussion was regarding some safety incentive policies. And then informational items, one thing, just kind of note, we've had quite a dry spell, drought, but actually our wells have been holding in there quite well. So there's none of them that are getting down to the point of any major concern at this point. Did note that actually the water sales and kind of presuming primarily the residential has been down this summer. So I think people are just taking it easy on the water and letting their lawn go a little brown. So that worked out okay.
Or a lot of brown.
A lot of brown, yeah. EDA, as mentioned, did meet. There were no action items. It was all informational information. Really just updates on projects. Nothing too urgent, but some additional information on Shopco. Still expecting soon some permit requests to make some changes in that if they complete all their leases. They had said by the end of August, and that's getting very near, so haven't seen anything yet, but hopefully soon. And then just a review of really all the other projects that EDA has been working on and starting to discuss some goals and things. We had a preliminary review of the Charter Commission's work and kind of some of the activities there that tied to the EDA. So just kind of anticipating setting up some of the goals for the next year or two. So, as far as the Housing Commission, this month did not meet. Director is was not able to have a meeting today due to some health issues, so that'll be next month.
Okay, thanks, John. Russ?
Marshall Area Transit did meet on a positive note due to some advertising, hopefully, or something. They received some very nice applications for drivers, including a couple that had CDLs already. So they hired 2 people full-time in Marshall and 2 part-time. And with those added positions, they hope to be reestablishing the routes that they cut back on or eliminated. One thing that was kind of upsetting to the whole committee, and we did not have a lack of quorum, but originally we had applied for $450,000 through MnDOT to get the shelters, the bus stops put up. MnDOT says we can only put up 6, but they're going to stay with the $450,000. So we're trying to figure out how they're going to do that, because they will not pay for sidewalks or anything else. They'll pay for the shelters, the pads, and the access ramp from the bus, and that's it. But so we figured that'll be $6,000 to $10,000 for the shelter. That leaves about $60,000 for concrete for sidewalks and pads. And we thought that was extremely excessive for MnDOT to say that they were only going to do that and still award the same amount of money and only give us 6 bus stops. So I think Nick is going to have further conversation with MnDOT regarding the numbers of bus stops and things like that. So that's all we had. That's all I had. That's the only committee that met. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Jim?
I have nothing.
We'll move then to council member individual items. Jim?
I have just very little, but what I saw into summer it was a success. My success is that my kids actually came home for it, so they enjoyed it very thoroughly as I played grandpa, so I did not see the evening activities. But they said it's the most enjoyable experience they've had in Marshall since they left after going to college, which I think was a very positive thing. That's all I have.
Good. Russ?
Stole some of my thunder, Jim.
Well, I'm sorry.
Most of us, I think.
Before I get to Sounds of Summer, I just want to make people aware the school projects have been started. The detours are going through residential streets. Please slow down when you go through those residential streets. Kids are still on their bikes. Kids are still walking. My wife and I went for a walk last night, and I swear to God that there was some cars going down one street at least 40 miles an hour. I mean, it was after 6 o'clock, but if they're doing it at 6 o'clock, they're doing it at 10 o'clock in the morning as well. So for the listening public, please slow down in those detours, because they're going through residential areas for the most part. In regards to the Sounds of Summer and 150th, I just want to, 14 years have been heading this up with Mark, And I would just want to thank the entire city staff, whether it be streets or parks or engineering, for putting up with detours and everything else. The volunteers, the numerous volunteers that we had for the 150th, they helped out tremendously. They helped for the Sounds of Summer stuff. We couldn't do this without the sponsors. Without their help, without their financial support, we would not be able to do what we did or have done in the last 14 years. And we hope to continue for many years. Like Jim said, we've had a lot of nothing but positive comments. This year, all 3 nights, even with Thursday being a little bit apprehensive because of the weather, it turned out really pretty good. And it really was a satisfaction to all of us. And lastly, I want to thank the public and the community for coming out and supporting. I had a couple of food vendors ask me again, where do we buy tickets, or where's the lineup to buy tickets for the inflatables? I says, they're too expensive, you can't buy them. And she looks at me and she says, yep, we charge very high rates because we want to see big smiles on kids' faces. And she just couldn't believe that we didn't charge for inflatables. So a thank you again from me personally, from Mark and the entire Sounds of Summer Committee and the 150th Committee, if Mayor wants to make some reference to that. But it was a very successful weekend overall. So thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, John?
Well, a little bit of the same. Really a big thank you to the 150th Committee for putting on a great weekend, the Sounds of Summer. I thought it was very well attended. I got to see most of the evenings out there to see what was going on and attend if you haven't been out in Independence Park and get to see the Big M, the mosaic on there, it looks great, well lit up at night. MMU got all the lights in the park taken care of, so if you're walking around late at night, since it gets dark about 9 o'clock now, the track path is very well lit all the way through, and it was a great week. I enjoyed every bit of it out there. So thank you to the committee and to everyone else that was on 150th. So.
And I think I saw John at every single event that was held, so.
Was he at the fashion show?
Not at the fashion.
I did not make the fashion show, I have to admit. That one I did not get to.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we got the YouTube video, so.
Craig?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Steve?
Same. Everything's been said about Sounds of Summer, so thank you.
Amanda, you have the final word.
Well, I would like to say thank you for the warm welcome, and I'm very excited to be here and honored. Can I make a motion to adjourn yet?
No.
I'm here for a while, you know.
So with that, we'll, thank you. We'll move into staff reports. Sharon?
Just a lot of budget discussions with EJ and actually a lot of economic development discussions too. It's hard to, a lot of times we can't state kind of what's happening because the developer or the business does not want information to be revealed. So we're just kind of on the cusp of a several projects, and hopefully they come through. So that's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So Jason, are you still on the line?
Still here. Thank you.
There we go.
So as Councilman Labatt pointed out, the RRFB School Crossings Project has started this week, and we expect that it'll move quickly because their contract deadline is the end of next week. So just so everyone's aware, though, that the signage piece will not be completed by that time. It's all back ordered and probably won't be installed until October, November, sometime quite late this fall. But we do expect all of the median work and the disruptive work to be completed by the end of next week. And it looks like that'll get done. And I agree with Councilman Labatt as well that everyone should just be patient while this work gets done and take care and caution in the residential neighborhoods. On the Sealcoat project, the chip seal, we expect the sweepers to be in tomorrow. So they'll start sweeping up all the excess rocks, which will be great. That'll also put us in a good position to restripe those roads, and we'll do so in accordance with the motion tonight. No activity out in Hallber, really. They've been out there kind of setting string line and preparing to pour curb and gutter, but I don't really think we'll get a lot of work out there until the RRFB project is done. It's the same concrete contractor. South First, Greeley, and Williams, that project is going pretty well. Pretty much all the underground work is done with exception to Greeley from First to College, and Williams has not been started yet. I think there's a little storm sewer work going on, and then they'll continue with the rest of the underground, and that project's going really well. Mill and overlay is complete, so you've seen all the new pavement on those routes, and that's great. Came in under budget, and our staff had to put in quite a bit of effort to make sure that happened because we were on a path to go over budget. So everybody did a great job there. The block near Block 100, the West Lion one block project from College Drive to North First Street, is pretty much, it's paved, and we're pretty well done with that. There's some tie-in blacktop work that has to be done and some seeding and black dirting work. And I don't have a timeline for you yet on that, but I would expect that project would be done fairly soon in the next few weeks. You may have noticed MnDOT had a contractor along the College Drive corridor doing some minor work. They're doing about a bunch of soil borings along the route as part of their phase 2 environmental review. I think tomorrow there may be some turn lane closures, one of them being at Bruce Street, but just pay attention to that. And once again, be patient. It should only take about an hour. The rail crossing at Airport Road, County Road 7 turned out great. So thanks to BNSF for that work, and thanks to everybody for being patient with that detour. And I think lastly, I'll just notify the council that the MPCA has reached out to us and notified us that we'll be audited this year for our stormwater program. So we'll have a couple weeks to get some information turned into them, and then we'll have a meeting. No purpose for the audit directly other than we have not been audited yet, and we're on the list to receive one. So hopefully no big findings there, but we'll work with them and report back as needed. That's all I've got.
Okay, Jason, it looks like the rail crossing at Fairview, they've got the bed in between the tracks. Did they give you any timeline on when they thought they'd tie in the paving?
No, that was supposed to be opened up last week on Friday, so I was a little surprised that it's not yet. I may reach out tomorrow and see. I would expect it should be open soon.
Sure, okay, thank you.
And similarly on the bike path at River Road crossing, there's still the paving to be done there yet, so.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for Jason? Dennis?
I don't have anything else to add tonight.
Okay, then we'll move along to the remaining items on the agenda, which includes a report on our cash and investments, our listing of building permits, as well as a listing of upcoming meetings. That's for the council's review. Is there any other business to come forward this evening? If not, a motion to adjourn.
Oh, now I get to?
No.
Oh, I know how to follow an agenda. I would like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second that.
Motion by Amanda, seconded by Jim. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We are adjourned.